Okay, muchachos, this video we talk about both simple past tenses in Spanish, the preterite and the imperfect. Okay, they're sometimes very confusing, but here's a few simple rules that'll hopefully guide you through. Okay, so if you think about an action, so this is the action here. This is the beginning of the action, this is the end of the action, and this is the completed action. So if we're going to talk about the beginning right here, all by itself, just the beginning. If we talk about when it ended, the end of an action, or we talk about the completed action, all of that is preterite. This is, how am I going to show that? So all the red is preterite, okay? So the beginning, the end, or the completed action, all right? If it is any part in the middle, any of this middle part where we don't know when it began, we don't know when it ended, or sometimes it's just not important, right? Like when I was 9 years old, well, like when you were 9? No, just when I was 9, right? Sometimes you're telling a story and it's just the middle of the action. So if it's the middle of an action, we're going to use the imperfect. And remember, we go back to the video I just did where when we talk about the imperfect, it's words like I used to, or I was doing, or I was watching, that's when we use the imperfect, okay? But the war ended, that's preterite, okay? The War of 1846 was 4 months long. Boom, that's a completed action. We're going to use the preterite, all right? So that's kind of just a basic of when we use the preterite and when we use the imperfect, okay? So let's talk about... let me see. Okay, now we need to talk about when we have overlapping actions, okay? So, let's talk about when we say like, when we have two actions in a sentence. Okay? You have to determine if they overlap, if one interrupts the other. If they're happening simultaneously, so they're both going on, you're going to see words like while, or which is durante. No, sorry, that's during. Sheesh. It's mientras. You'll see words and, so with E. For example, it'll say something like, I went to the mountains and my family went to the beach. Two separate activities that happen at the same time. They don't even have to necessarily happen simultaneously. They're just separate. We're saying them in the same sentence, but they're separated. Okay, they're separate actions, okay? So if that's the case, then they're going to be both preterite. If it's a completed action, you want them both to be preterite, or they're going to be both imperfect. Okay? So you can say like, oh, yesterday during class, so we know that began and ended, the students took notes while the teacher talked. Right? Los estudiantes tomaron apuntes mientras el profesor habló. Right? So those are both preterite because those are both yesterday. So you can say like, when I was 9 years old, I used to go to the park and my sister used to play basketball at the gym, right? So those are both imperfect because they were happening, they didn't interrupt each other, okay? So if that's the case, then you want them both to be preterite or both to be imperfect, okay? Now here's the other case where if they interrupt. So let's say if they interrupt each other, let's just say if one interrupts, my bad. If one interrupts the other. Okay? So one action is happening and then another action interrupts it. Okay? So let's say the background, or let's do it like this. The background action, or what's happening. So whatever's going on, like I was watching TV, that's going to be imperfect. Remember on the notes, one of the things we said was like, I used to do something, or I was doing this thing. So we're saying like, oh, I was watching TV, and then what's happening, and then the action that interrupts, that's going to be the preterite. Okay? So for example, I was watching TV when my phone rang. All right? So we'd say, yo veía la televisión, cuando mi teléfono sonó. Okay, the verb sonar, right? So we put this one in the preterite, because this is what I was doing, so that's why that's imperfect. I was watching television when my phone rang, okay? So those are the two instances. Sometimes you'll have sentences where they don't interrupt each other, where they're going on at the same time, or two actions are separate. And then those would just be, both of them would be the same tense, either both preterite or both imperfect. Versus this one down here where you have something going on and then it gets interrupted. So the what's happening with the background action is the imperfect, and then what does the interrupting would be in the preterite tense. Okay? All right, that's preterite and imperfect.